Okay. Okay, we'll start over. Call the meeting to order and have a resolution to adopt the agenda, Mallory?
Okay, be it resolved that the agenda for the special meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Desert All held on December 8th, 2023 be approved as presented.
Mover and seconder. Nancy and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Being none? Okay, we're just before we start the budget presentation. Does anybody else besides me and Walt have trouble following this thing on their iPad? Like I couldn't make notes without a paper copy. I like to see what I'm doing. Is everybody okay with the iPad doing it? Okay.
I'm okay with it, but I'm okay with paper too, because I'm like you, like to scratch a little bit of notes besides and I can not.
Well, I know it's 84 sheets, but it's a pretty important process. If we're not happy with it, we better get what we're comfortable going through. Yeah, for the next draft. Okay, for the next draft, you'll have one then. Okay, couple of things about the budget. Of course, 12.4 is not a very acceptable number, but we've got a lot of issues here that we're going to have a good look at. I think when I see the neighbors around us, City Kawartha Lakes is 4.2 or something, and others are hanging around the 3 or 4%, which doesn't mean we have to do that, and maybe we can't, but we'll have to go through the process here. And I think we're down to looking at everything, and maybe even I hate to say this, but could come to some staff layoffs and for certain times of the year. We had to do it before. The staff is very important to us, but it's important that they're producing at a rate that's got some efficiency all the time, not just certain months of the year. So anyway, that's I'm not going to go into that right now, but I do have some ideas that will come out through the process here. So I guess we get Barb on board here, Tamara. Barb's there. Barb, do you have a particular place you want to start, or
Yes, so today we'll go through the presentation, the first draft budget presentation, and then we can, after each presentation by the department manager, council will have the opportunity to have a Q&A session. So on that note, if we're ready to start, I can share my screen and we can begin the presentation.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so you should see the welcome page for the budget presentation.
Looks good, Barbara.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, Mayor Ferry and members of council. Welcome to the 2024 budget presentation. This is the first draft. So reflecting on my career with the municipality, this is the 13th budget I have developed and far the most challenging. The 2024 budget proposal will see record infrastructure expenditures. Thank you to the department managers for their participation in developing the budget. Each department manager will present their respective budget. There will be a question period at the end of each department presentation. So before we dive into the 2024 budget details, I'll take a moment to reflect on the 2023 activity and currently where we stand. So some good news here. We anticipate a surplus at the end of 2023. There have been some record assessment on property taxation in 2023 that generated basically an additional $230,000. At the same time, the municipality has earned approximately $355,000 in additional interest income. And that's a direct result of some of the healthy cash balances that we have, and also some of the rate of return on our investments. So staff are recommending for council to consider any surplus to be transferred to underfunded reserves. And so right now we're seeing quite a pressure on our infrastructure reserve funds, and those are basically for our buildings and facilities, our general vehicle and equipment, and our roads capital. So now we'll start with the 2024 budget and just some of the pressures that we are facing here. Two areas, obviously, with our capital expenditures and our operating expenses. So similar to the private sector, the municipality is experiencing the impact of high inflation and supply chain disruptions. Reviewing contract for constructions post-COVID has impacted the cost of roads capital projects. There are longer lead times in procuring vehicles and equipment. Pricing may fluctuate to reflect rates at the time of delivery, which can be between 2 to 3 years. Supply has also disrupted the routine replacement of assets. 2024 is projecting the delivery of 3 tandem trucks. So the example we have here in 2020, prior to COVID, the cost of a tandem truck was $254,000. In 2024, we are budgeting $354,000. So you can see here there's a $100,000 increase on each unit. If you take into consideration delivery of 3 units, that's now $300,000. So this variance is a direct pressure on reserve funds, which are primarily utilized to fund capital replacement. Under operating expenses, we're now subject to renewing some of our contracts post-COVID. So the example we have here is we've recently extended the grounds maintenance contract for 1 year, and that was a 4-year contract. During that 4-year term, we were very fortunate to experience a very reasonable increase year over year. Come post-COVID, we're now looking at a 25% increase, and that's a direct impact on the pressures of materials and labor. Another expense that we're going to see quite an increase on is our insurance renewal for 2024, $40,000 or 10%. Another item in our budget for 2024 is the municipal rental rates for our own vehicle. Those rates have been revisited. That there will generate another $350,000 or 38% increase over 2023. So now we'll move on to the revenue stream, and our core stream of revenue is municipal taxation. And this budget here is presenting a 14.85% levy increase on municipal taxation. That also includes 1.7% in growth. During 2023, municipality had seen an additional $230,000 in revenue. On average, a 4-year average, we typically see $107,000. So 1% on the levy for 2024 equates to $110,000. So if we go back to our example of the equipment rental rates being increased $350,000 over the course of 2024, that is over a 3% increase on the levy alone. So there are some key activities that are really driving that levy increase. So overall, the residential increase will be $46.94 per $100,000 worth of assessment. The commercial will see a $69.60 increase per 100,000, and the industrial class will see an increase of $80.65 per $100,000 worth of assessment. Now, this is quite an increase over previous years. So this graph here illustrates the large jump in the tax levy rate for 2024. In 2023, the levy increase was 2.34%. So we can see here on the graph, there is quite a jump. We also see the same trend on the commercial tax rate. In 2023, the tax levy equated to $10.71 compared to a tax levy increase proposed of $69.60. Now, we haven't received confirmation on the county and the education rates, so they remain flat from 2023 in this illustration here. So the next graph here really tells a story on the the levy increase year over year. And if you follow the trend line, you can see that based on our requirements for today in 2024, we've actually underfunded our previous years to help build and replace those assets that we're looking to replace in 2024. The total levy will be $12,666,828. And again, 1% on the levy is $110,000. The CVA assessment has been postponed. We have been told that there will be no change in 2024. So assessment values that we're looking at today are based on the 2016 CVA. The total levy increase here from 2023 to 2024 in dollars is $1,637,957. So continuing with funding, our tax levy will fund 52% of the municipal expenditures in 2024. Our unconditional funding, the OMPF funding, we will see $1,824,002. And that's a slight increase over 2023, $35,000 increase. And that basically is driven by the rural communities component and Northern's community component within the funding model calculation. So this graph here is illustrating our three main sources of funding. We've talked about property taxes, and you can follow the green bar. And yes, that is quite a jump from 2023. You'll notice on our provincial funding for grants and federal funding, that has decreased. In 2023, we had approximately $1 million funding our capital infrastructure projects. In 2024, we will have $500,000 assisting our capital infrastructure projects. Under other non-taxation, this includes user fees, transfers to and from reserves, and debt. So you'll notice here that we're really relying heavily on the other non-taxation, and that increase in 2024 is driven by the debt that is being presented in the 2024 budget to fund capital infrastructure projects. And we're looking at funding about $2.8 million. Just a further breakdown on our federal grants. We have our standard Canada Community Build Fund, and we are budgeting $207,831. That is an estimate. We're just waiting to get the final numbers from the ministry, so that could change. And we also have one other grant, the Active Transportation Fund. It is $50,000 grant to assist with the active travel network for the Haliburton Village, and that is a plan. We do have some of that money already spent in 2023, and the balance will be spent in 2024. Moving on to provincial grants. Again, we have our OMPF funding, $1.8 million. We have our Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, $288,000. That is a drop of $50,000 from 2023. We have our Canadian Museum Operating Grant, static at $16,224. And we also have an Ontario Trillium Grant for a playground structure for $150,000. Touching on the long-term borrowing, in 2024, considering the proposed new debt that we're going to be looking at within the budget, we are projecting $864,500 in debt repayment. That equates to 7.84% on the municipal levy. Based on the annual repayment limit for 2024, the municipality may repay up to $3,058,836 per year on debt. Currently, at the rate of $864,500, that represents 28% of the annual repayment limit. So here we're looking at increasing our debt again for roads infrastructure and roads equipment. The main driver for the increase is the bridge work. We're looking at rehabilitating 2 bridges, combined total of $2.5 million. We're also looking to finance 1 backhoe loader. Typically, that type of equipment would be funded through the General Vehicle and Equipment Reserve Fund. However, the reality is we do not have enough money in that fund. So we'll talk about reserve balances. And while we have different reserve funds, the primary ones that fund municipal operations are the Development Reserve, which house our core infrastructure. We have the Parkland Reserve, we have the Parking Meter Reserve, and we have the Cash in lieu of Parking Reserve. The forecast balance at the end of 2023 for these reserve balances is just over $5.2 million. And that is a decrease of $186,000 in 2023. Looking ahead to 2024, the projected balance is $5,189,000, and we'll see another decrease of $23,445. So the total draw on the reserve funds for 2024 are $1,649,000, $1,500,000. Total transfers to reserve funds is $1,626,055. So I'd just like to also point out the transfers into reserve funds includes any interest income that our reserve funds earn. Definitely we need to really look at the money that we are transferring into reserves for our asset replacement.
Barb, does that balance include the money we've loaned ourselves? Is that in that 5.21? I'm sorry. to ask
Yes,
questions.
it is. Yes, it is.
Should,
Yeah.
maybe be asking them as you go along here, because we're gonna lose them. A lot of stuff going through here.
Yeah.
Well, let's just carry on for a while then, but.
Okay.
Sometimes it's easy to clarify it at the time, rather than come back and when you forget about it. Whatever works for you.
Murray, will the department heads, will we go through all this with the department heads when she's finished them?
Well, we will.
Okay.
Which we can have a chance then, but
Sure.
I just wonder about some of these provincial, some of these funds that were up there, whether they're mandatory or or they're not. Some of the things that I don't know whether they're grants or what they are. So anyway, we'll get to that, Barb. Don't worry about it now.
Okay. I'll continue on then.
Carry on.
Okay. So we'll just take a look at a deeper dive on the one in infrastructure reserve fund, or what we refer to as our development reserve fund. And under this reserve fund here, we fund our building and facilities, we fund our vehicles and equipment, and roads infrastructure, which not only includes roads, and it also includes bridges. So for this particular reserve fund, we're looking at a year-end balance of $4.7 million. And again, we see this is where the decrease is being driven for the overall reserve funds. It's projected this reserve is going to drop by about $200,000. In 2024, we're looking to close out at $4.7 million. And so we're going to see a net decrease of $20,000. Considering the activity going through the reserve fund, I think that is pretty fair. We're looking to take delivery of 3 tandem trucks this year. The cost of those 3 tandem trucks is just over $1 million in total. And we're also looking to procure for one 1-ton truck at $119,000. We're looking to draw $250,000 to help mitigate the increased scope of our roads capital construction project. We're looking to draw $50,000 from our gravel pit reserve fund to help with rehabilitation and clearing of the Carroll pit. Under waste management, we're looking to draw funds to rehabilitate at our Kinesis and West Guildford landfills. And under buildings, that is the net amount the municipality contributes to the Rotary Beach project, which is funding with the ISIP CCR stream. So total transfers to the reserve fund in 2024 are projected to be $1,590,000. And this here, it is a big number. This takes into consideration that bump on the equipment rentals that we are charging ourselves to make this number more realistic, to not only plan for future replacement of assets, but also make sure that we're positioned to provide services to the community in a responsible manner.
Barb, maybe you could tell council how the development reserve fund got started. Do you know the history of that?
That I don't.
Okay, Halliburton Electric Light Company sold to the municipality or give the municipality $37,000. And that's how that fund has grown since that time. You know, your dad was around then, that, so, and Nancy's dad was around. So it's interesting, and that's just because they bought equipment and they rented it to themselves. That's how that fund developed, so it's been pretty successful, really. Just a little history that's interesting.
Thank you.
It'd be in the 1950s, I believe. Before, but not before me, but before I was involved. Anyway, carry on, Barb.
Okay, so here we see a picture of the Development Reserve Fund, core infrastructure. And definitely you can see that in 2024, we're pretty well flat with 2023. In 2022, there was a huge cash injection into the reserve fund for the sale proceeds on municipal assets. So again, what we actually want to see is that trend line building up. So with the increase injection into the reserve funds, we will be able to build that over time incrementally. So of the total balance on the reserve fund, 4.7 million, buildings and facilities makes up about 425,000. Fire and vehicle equipment is 486,000. The general vehicle and equipment fund is 345,000. We have money set aside for gravel pit rehabilitation of 700,000. Roads capital is 2.1 million. And we have some money there for stormwater, about 200,000, waste management capital, 300,000. And you'll notice that there's quite a big jump in 2024. And so this budget is actually proposing the cost savings that we will see transitioning to the Blue Box program is being allocated to the reserve fund to help build up the fund for future landfill reconfiguration. So through asset management and our responsibility to provide services and make sure that we're able to have plenty of money for our core infrastructure replacement. We are building up a reserve year over year, and based on our asset management plan, the proposal there is 3% year over year for the next years and for the next 10 years. So that's from 2021 to 2031. So 2021 and 2022, we did not put in 3.1%. We were putting in the 1.7. This budget here, realizing the pressure on asset management, is now bringing in that 1.3% to make up the full 3%. And the thought process there is taking that assessment growth, that additional supplemental growth that we receive year over year, and directly putting that into our reserve funds for asset replacement. So in total, we're looking at putting aside 340,000 for asset management. Historically, it's been $170,000. So again, just want to make note of that. We're looking at a huge tax levy increase, but there is some very, very good logic behind this. Moving over to our sewage treatment plant and the user fee, again, going back to our asset management plan, we're looking at another 8.1% increase. So an ERU will now be $805 compared to $746 in 2023. Metered users are going to see $40.49 per 1,000 gallons. In 2023, it was $37.46. So we'll talk a bit now about our capital budget expenditures. You can see here our total capital expenditures for 2024 are almost $7.3 million. And you'll notice 66% of that value is attributed to roads construction at $2.3 million, and our bridge rehabilitation at $2,550,000. So the increase over 2023 equates to $1,782,000. And you'll notice that taking on the bridge work is the lion's share of that increase. So when we look at our capital expenditures year over year, you'll notice our vehicle and equipment is certainly exceeded the trend in previous years. And again, we're looking at 3 tandem trucks. Our bridges, we're looking at rehabilitating 2 bridges. And our roads construction, we're looking to expand that program for 2024. How are we going to fund those projects? So you'll notice here, $567,669 in additional municipal taxation is budgeted to meet that $7.3 million projection. So that increase there is a direct impact on the levy. You'll notice that municipal reserves are down $900,000. And you'll also notice that our grant from the Canada Community Build Fund is down $293,000. And our Ontario Community Infrastructure is down $208,000. So on the opposite end, we're looking at taking on debt of $2.8 million to fund those bridges and vehicles. So there is some logic here. Basically, going back to the point of needing to build our reserve funds is very important for capital infrastructure. We cannot always rely on grant money. We're seeing that on the some of the unconditional grants, they are dropping. In 2023, we were actually fortunate to utilize some of our provincial and federal funding because we carried over previous year funds. So in 2024, the aggregate of the provincial and federal funding is about $500,000. In 2023, we utilized almost $1 million. So these are the impacts that are happening on this budget. So here we compare to previous years. And again, the debt, $2.8 million. You'll see our funds, grant funds, the OCIF and the CCBF in 2023. That $1 million, now it's scaled back to $500,000 in 2024. Municipal reserves, we relied on them heavily in 2023. So now they're not working as hard for us because we simply don't have the money there. And then property taxation is picking up some of that shift from the reserves. And we're also expanding our capital projects in 2024. It just seems to be a year where, we have this influx. So I'm just going to reflect on our expenditures as a whole. So this includes our capital and our operating expenditures. So again, you can see the picture here, transportation. We've expanded on our capital projects in 2024, our bridges and our roads and our vehicles. Under general government, that bump there is attributed to debt repayment on an asset purchase in 2023. You can see in environment, there is actually a retraction from 2023, and that's directly attributed to the landfill reconfiguration and the Blue Box program. So I'm going to just highlight a few areas that that will not be presented in the other departmental presentations today. And so we'll start off with general government. We're looking at implementing electronics record management in 2024 for $25,000. We have debt repayment, new debt repayment on the land purchase. And we have here transfers to reserves for insurance. And that there is not only general insurance, but for cyber insurance as well. And we also have a transfer to reserves for legal.
For electronic records management. I thought we hired a person to do that.
We do, as a municipality participating in the joint project, we have a contribution to the project as well.
That's the consultant fees. So we have a consultant as well.
I'll jump in here, Barbara, if you don't mind. It's not a consultant, it's the vendor. So it's the actual software that
Okay.
they provide. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, we don't have a person specifically for that. No.
Okay, so we'll just touch on grants in lieu of donations, $66,000 for 2024. Really no change there. These are very comparable to last year. And the major one there is the Rails and Gallery, where we do support them for $50,000 in their operating budget. Under health, under the health segment, we have the cemetery and the medical center. And so we're going to see a bump in the grounds maintenance for the cemetery. And that is a direct result of renewing the contract post-COVID. And unfortunately, supplies and material and labor, that cost from the vendor gets passed on to the municipality. Under the medical center, there will be a little bit of an increase on rental revenue, $5,500. We're going to see a decrease on the parking revenue, $27,000. In 2023, the parking gate was decommissioned. And then we also have a transfer to the medical center reserve for $45,000. Under social and family services, we have our Dymo bus. Expenditures are comparable to 2023. There's an increase in revenue of $4,500, direct result of increased ridership, and the corresponding operating costs will increase $3,500. So on that note, I just wanted to close out and just reiterate where our tax dollars are going. You'll notice here 77% of our tax dollars are being channeled to the top 3 services that the municipality provides, being our transportation, our protection for policing, and our landfill. So on that note, I will open up the floor for questions.
I'll start with the asset management. I know you're making a strong case for that. But is this the year to, when we've got so much pressure to bump it up the full amount? Do we go to 2 1/4 or something and go do it over a couple of years? That's a lot of money.
Well, again, that's council's decision. What we're seeing here is the cost of replacing assets is growing exponentially, and transfers to the reserve will position the municipality to streamline the tax rate and be able to fund those assets as they come up for replacement.
And I totally agree with you, but when you get a tax rate built in, say of 5%, it's there next year automatically. So, I mean, you may have more flexibility. This is a tough year, and we have a lot of people that hardly be able to buy their groceries right now. So I don't want to, I'd rather spread it out if we can, but that's up to council, whatever they want to do.
Well, and definitely council can consider staging that over 2 years to alleviate some of the pressure on the tax levy.
Yeah, we're looking at $10,000 at a time here. It adds up. You know, sometimes $50,000 doesn't sound like much, but 2 of them make 1%. So anyway, I just throw it out there for consideration. Yes.
So Barb, when we sell our surplus equipment and stuff, does that money go back into the core infrastructure reserve?
Yes, it does. And this budget here is on the general vehicle and equipment reserve fund is including sales of surplus equipment in 2023, and that's being budgeted as $125,000 injected back into the reserve fund.
When these 3 tandem trucks were ordered 3 years ago, what was the anticipation of how they were going to be paid for?
Reserve funds.
But now we're taking some out of that's not out of reserve funds, right?
There's one vehicle that we're proposing, actually it's a backhoe loader that we're proposing to finance to take the pressure off of the reserve fund.
Okay, so it's not direct, but it's indirect. Okay.
Yes.
One of the trucks is replacement through insurance, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Did we get the insurance?
Yes, the proceeds on the claim will fund that vehicle replacement.
Well, shouldn't that be a wash then of?
Yeah, it
you know,
could
downward
be a
two?
wash.
We're drawing those funds from the reserve fund.
So you put those funds in the reserve then?
That's correct. When we received the proceeds on the claim, they were put into the reserve fund.
Barb, is there, I guess I'm getting a little foggy of reserve funds. Is there a mathematical, is it 10% of the gross budget for the year constitutes the reserve fund, or is there a printout or something we could see in terms of each department's reserve fund? Because I hear reserve funds all the time, and at the start of the conversation, I know we've talked about a lot here in the last hour. You spoke a lot, which is great. I don't know how you wrap your head around all these numbers, but anyways, in regards to, you know, again, how much I think you said there was a surplus at the start of the conversation, and now I'm hearing there's a huge not surplus at the end of it, and I might be, again, getting cross-threaded in the language, but again, I'm just wondering if we can get some more clarity, or I can get some more clarity in terms of what department has for reserve funds and how that gets looked after or allocated, I suppose.
Yes, so the municipality does have a reserves and reserve fund policy, and within that policy, there is a schedule that sets targets for each one of the reserve and reserve funds, and it also lays out the analogy and the rationale behind each reserve fund. So definitely, I can share that with council, and that would help as a guiding document to understand the whole arena of reserves and reserve funds.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate that.
The one question I have, we're borrowing money for bridges. I'm not sure that we're ready to build 2 bridges this year. I don't even know if we got the engineering done on Redstone. But
Yeah,
I'll get to Rob on that.
yeah, I think we could defer that to Rob.
Barb, I got one quick question for you. I think you already answered it. Assessments, I was wondering when new assessments are coming, but I think you answered it and said they're not coming. Is that correct?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, that's a question we're all asking as municipal treasurers, is when is the new CBA going to come out? And we've been told that there's nothing that's going to happen in 2024. We're still working on the 2016 CBA.
A quick question. Barb, has there been much fluctuation in the costing of OPP? I know it was a big hit at the very beginning and then it kind of evened off. Does that seem to have any fluctuation depending on, you know, how senior the officers are, like the cost of running the detachment?
So I actually just participated in a billing model webinar yesterday, and it's not a big increase that way. As far as the base goes, if there's going to be any increase, it would be in the calls for service. So that's more the variable cost to the municipality. So there is, I think off the top of my head, about a $28,000 increase in policing costs this year. And there's 2 components to that increase. One is they base the cost on the number of properties. So we did have some growth in our properties. However, the larger component of that was the 2022 reconciliation of calls for service for the municipality, and that basically drove the increase. I mean, it's always nice to see a decrease. However, our total policing costs are well over $2.1 million per year.
Supplementary taxes, Barb, where are they in the budget?
They would be considered under the municipal taxation line.
So do we have an estimate on that?
So our actual for 2023 is just 230,000, and then in 2024 we've actually included $50,000 in supplemental income for new in-year growth.
That's their estimate or ours?
Ours.
Okay.
Typically, we do not budget for that.
No, I know.
Yeah.
We don't, but maybe we should.
Yeah. So there is $50,000 in the first draft for supplemental billing.
This may be a question for Rob, but does anybody know how many bridges we have in inventory? You'll have all that. Okay.
So just to clarify, I know there's some interest on the bridges there. While we're taking the debt on of 2.5 million, That there is actually a balance sheet activity. That translates into roughly $74,000 on the municipal levy this year for debt repayment.
Any other questions for Barb before we start talking to department heads? No? Okay. I guess Barb, you've done a good job. You've satisfied them. So, for now, anyway, so what departments are we taking them in order here or what's the?
Yep. So we'll continue with the presentation, and we do have the department managers ready to present their information. So the next presenter will be our fire chief, Dan. And I'll go back to sharing my screen.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can see me and hear me.
You're good, Dan.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for taking time to follow along with our presentation this morning to Mr. Mayor and Council. So thank you very much, Barbara, for all your hard work getting this prepared. And I'll ask you just to advance the screens as we go, please. Thank you. So first of all, it's a picture here taken down in the park here. Just wanted to share a thank you very much to the municipality for making sure that the memorial went down in honor of Chief Isles. There's a tree and a bench and the plaque, as you can see there, with Mike's grandson and that picture. So just want to make sure that council was aware that the fire department appreciates that was done on our behalf. Next screen, please. So you can see here, volunteer wages. This is a bit of a breakdown, but I just want you to know sort of where it's all coming from. We're anticipating a large call volume increase as of right now. I've mentioned it in the last council meeting, last couple. We are at 437 calls for the year as of right now, and we still have 20 more days. And last year we had 407 calls. So we're anticipating being over 450 calls, which represents approximately 10%, assuming those numbers are correct. Now, I can't remember exactly how Barbara and I came up with 14%, but that's we have this increase for call volume as well as in-house training that we can break down. So that's where the numbers come from. We know how long the training is expected to take, but the training changes from year to year in the number of firefighters involved in it. CPR and first aid is every other year. So next year we can possibly see a little bit of a drop in the volunteer wages, but the year after it'll be back up when everyone has to participate in their renewal. Do we have any questions on that before we move on? Or
Do you have your full complement of volunteers now, Dan?
so I am probably short to make a full component of I think it was one actually right now.
Oh,
Because we took on 4 new firefighters as of October, and then had one retire shortly after the hire was completed. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the next, please.
Yeah, and what
sorry.
percent of I think you said you were going to break it down later, but roughly what percent of those calls would be like medical assistance calls?
So our medical assistance calls have dropped this year. Now, I didn't check just recently. I was just doing the council report. If you give me a moment, I might be able to find that. Medical. So as of right now, our medical calls volume, and even though our total call volume is up about 30 calls as of right now, we are actually down about 15 calls in medical. So that, for whatever reason, I don't understand, has actually dropped this year. I know there was a lot of anticipation of it being a busier year for us with the closure of the Minden Hospital, and that doesn't seem to have had an effect on our calls in that way. So.
Thank you.
So just so everyone knows, obviously you know what we respond to, but just I don't know if you can tell from the background there, but that is actually right behind our arena. So unfortunately, that was if they'd gone another 10 or 15 feet, we've had to consider our building being damaged as well there. So it was a very quick response. That was a very busy day for us. We actually had a car fire, an ATV fire, a chimney fire, hydro line fires, a medical call, and I believe one other call just on that one day. But just so you know, just you can see, you know, being even the response time being right behind the fire hall, how much damage happens to a vehicle and vehicle fire. So
Yeah,
just
well,
wanted to share that with you.
never rains but it pours, right?
Yes, it seems to be that way. We have had a lot of calls, days like that in this past year or two, where we might go 3 days without anything being called out, and we are literally having multiple calls on top of each other. So it's very good that we have a very dedicated core group that are responding, and we're getting the chance to train these new firefighters. And it's great that we do have our full complement.
Yeah, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but we have to ask tough questions here. And certainly the last thing I would ever do personally is take money away from fire. I know how important it is. But when I look at your budget, for instance, on wages, you spent 226 to the end of November. You budgeted 343. You go down to benefits, you went from 52,000 to 84. Like what's the rationale for that?
I can't speak to the benefits. I might have to ask Barbara on that because I don't know the background of that. But if our wages, I'm happy to see if we've actually dropped down on that. That's based on what we're anticipating coming. Now there is another payroll for the firefighters that will be being done at the end of next week. So the last quarter has not been paid out into this year yet.
Mhm.
No, big.
Correct. Yeah, we have one more volunteer firefighter payroll in December. That's not reflected in that year-to-date number.
So it's probably going to go to 250 then, but that's still 100,000 more next year.
I'm not sure about that, and I apologize. I can't answer that question off the top of my head. I would guess we were that far off based on numbers, so there might be something that Barbara and I discussed that I'm just not fully aware of. My apologies.
Well, I think at the end of this, I'm probably going to ask department heads to go back and have another look at some of these. So you can do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll make a note on that right now so that I'll.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, sounds like you're good, Dan.
Okay, next. So material supplies, this we keep an annual an inventory on everybody's equipment. We go through this at least once a year, and then unfortunately as things come up, there's a 10-year life expectancy on the main firefighter PPE. So our personal protective equipment, so bunker gear, flash hoods, the boots, gloves, all that stuff has a maximum 10-year lifespan for interior firefighting purposes. So of course we want to have everybody prepared to be able to go inside and do that if necessary. We are allows us to keep some older equipment so that if somebody, say my gear has been sent out for cleaning and inspection, I still have something that I can use. I can't do any interior part, but I can still participate on the scene. So that's allowing us to sort of build up a bit of inventory that way. We expect to need 4 bunker suits minimum probably every year. Looking ahead, we have 1 year coming up where we might have as many as 8 to replace. So I'm hoping in the next 2 years to maybe get ahead on that. I think we're okay. This year we need 4, but next year we only need 2. So we can maybe still continue to get 4 is what I'm hoping to do. The SCBA fiber bottles, we need to replace them. They can be hydrostatically tested, and as long as they pass, they can remain in service for up to 15 years. But if they don't, we need to replace a couple of them. And our RIT bottle is a different size, so we can't just substitute another one. It actually is a larger capacity. And what it is, that's our rapid intervention team. So that's going in if we had a victim that we can possibly save that's inside a building, or for a firefighter down. So that's why we have that larger capacity canister for that one, and that one is due to be replaced. So foam agent, we try our best not to use that. But certainly some things we just have to do that to smother a fire. You can't get underneath the steel roofing and stuff like that when a building's collapsed. Radios, unfortunately, they have doubled in price in the 2 years that I've been reviewing the budgets since the last budget that Chief Isles would have prepared for council. The radios were $750 a piece. They are now up to $500 a piece, or sorry, $1,500 a piece. And now we certainly try and reuse them as much as possible, but incidents do happen. One had to go out of service. One we were able to repair this year, and then just one has actually disappeared, unfortunately. So I know I'm going to need a couple more radios next year. And then just general, we do hose testing annually on our fire hose. And as long as that passes, it goes through a pressure test, a hydraulic pressure test. And as long as that passes, then it goes right back on the truck and we're good for another year. But unfortunately, we have some hose that's now, I'm sure we have some back from the 80s. They're still passing hydrostatic tests, but we're not anticipating all of them to survive. And so we'll have to be replacing that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Any questions there? Sorry.
Everybody okay? Okay, thank you, Dan.
Okay, next, please. So this is just a picture there. We moved a couple years ago. Chief Isles had started working towards our ice water rescue program. And just so you get a chance to see some of the equipment that has been purchased in the past, we are maintaining this program. This past year, we purchased 3 more sets to go along with that. And we're hoping to get more of our firefighters trained this year. We're just, as of right now, having an issue with the academic standards and evaluations as they're bringing in some new skills. So we just want to make sure we're all in alignment before we can go ahead with that. But we're working towards having all of our firefighters trained for the ice water rescue as well. Thank you. So as I was saying about annual inspections, there are certain things that we can do here in-house, but there's certain things that we can't. So our self-contained breathing apparatus, we have a third party that comes and checks them, does maintenance on them, does a full annual inspection. They do a flow test and make sure that we're getting sufficient air through them. That was just completed this past week here. Happy to say all of equipment is passed with flying colors. We're good to go for another year. PPE and annual inspection, well, as I said, there's a 10-year lifespan on them, but every set of bunker gear is sent out at least once a year to have an annual inspection by a third party for moisture buried, make sure that they're actually doing their job and our firefighters are still being protected. Our air supply compressor servicing, so that goes out twice a year. It has our breathing air supply is tested to make sure that it's clean, and as well as just annual servicing on the equipment. And then the ladder testing and inspection every year. All of our ladders are tested, checked over. They check to make sure the rivets are good, and there's life expectancy on them as well. Any questions on equipment repairs?
Good.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Good.
So just some of the equipment that is sort of specialized equipment. I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity. Certainly, I extend the invitation. Anyone participating in this meeting here right now, you're welcome to come over to the fire hall at any time and ask direct questions and see some of the stuff we have. I know this is some different equipment that you wouldn't get to see otherwise. It's a big fan that we use for exhausting smoke and gases out of a building if we had a carbon monoxide call. And then on top, that's not just a standard chainsaw. That's called a bullet saw, and it actually works more like a grinder. And it can cut through some steel, but it cuts through shingles and stuff like that. So, thank you. So building maintenance, typical annual stuff. Luckily, Chief Isles had purchased and upgraded our heating system not too long ago, so we're just dealing with annual service. We're not looking at increasing anything extra, not adding anything different. It's just a regular maintenance around. So certainly some things, painting, we buy paint, and actually we've been very lucky to have the firefighters volunteer to paint the club room to keep the up appearances, just for a bit of pride in the place. Building inspections, that's we have to get them done. So same thing, we have third party Dyson's comes in and checks over our extinguishers. Even though we do our monthly checks, we have annual inspections on building items and stuff like that. Door inspections, that's referring to the garage door openers. We need to have a third party come in and check them over for us. It's not something we're qualified to do. Now we do have an extra repair. Our back door here, the cement is given away, and we need to have some repair work done there. So that's hopefully covering cost of some repair work underneath there, a little bit of cleaning around the back to prevent further damage, and cover other department. I believe we've got Rob Parrish as the building maintenance person, going to be taking care of that whole for us. But the other side we might need a new door for the garage. It's not airtight around it anymore, and there's also needs some repair around the base. Actual building is the steel around the support system needs a repair work. And you can see just in general the building is having some issues. We've had the roof was redone there last year. We've had a bit of an issue with that, so that is under the works. But just to council be aware, unfortunately, even though the roof was just done 2 years ago, there appears to be a problem with the silicone, and the roof is leaking again right now. So. Computer support. So these are our IT, our systems that we use. So the online pre-emergency is the firefighter training. That's a combined situation, a service that we use, puts all of our policies are on there, as well as training aspect, and we get to use that in line with for our new recruits to use as our part of our blended teaching to go with our hands-on work. So they learn a bunch of stuff from the books on their own, and we certainly work with them to help finish up, and we do all the hands-on skills. The Who's Responding is our paging app for the phones that gets our firefighters out, but also gives us a means to provide them with further information and a mapping system. We can keep track of firefighters. It's been very good for us to be able to use that also to know who's available to respond to calls, and then you can also see how far away from the hall they are when it comes to getting trucks rolling out there. FirePro administration software, that's the one we use that keeps track of all of our training records, our certifications for the firefighters, as well as all of our call records, and then we can transmit those call records directly from that right to the OFM for the annual stats that we're required to send in. And then the Duo support, that's our sort of our safety stuff from IT. That's the other aspect of just our basic cyber protection. Any questions there? Okay, well, we'll move on then, please. So hired equipment, so we have a contract with Highlands East. There's a certain amount every year that we pay them automatically to cover Harcourt, basically municipality or township for us. And then there's cost in that. So that's estimated based on the last few years. There has been a bit of an increase this year, but I think we're coming within budget, and we've estimated that this is what we anticipate for next year.
I have a question on that. Does Highlands East give us or give you a list of all the calls that they've done in Harcourt?
Affirmative. Anything that they get to on our behalf, we do get a calls, but a summary that's provided with the invoice, because we have a rate for a certain amount for coverage, and then there's an amount for, I think it's $165 per hour that they send us over and above. That's the way the contract was built.
That's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
It really is, yeah. And we certainly can't get there fast enough. So,
well, if you had your own department over there, it cost $300,000 or $400,000.
It's significantly more expensive than what we're paying them. Yes.
Do you know what the average call amount is in Harcourt?
Sorry, the number of calls?
Yeah.
No, I think the last invoice I had was for the last 3 months, and I believe there was 12 calls on it. So that would be 4 calls a month that they're covering for us in that area.
And does medical assist be covered in that category as well?
Probably the majority of it is medical assist.
Yeah.
Based on our tiered response. Yeah. Okay, I guess we'll move on then, please, Barbara. Oh, I'm sorry, you've already moved on. I gotta pay attention. So MNRF, the same sort of agreement. That is for coverage. That's a reciprocal agreement, but they cover more area on our behalf, just because of the nature of our municipality being so much of it the north end, say by Haliburton Forest and Wildlife, that north area where it's harder for us to access, and they access on our behalf for with helicopter coverage and stuff like that for wildfire. Radio tower, that's just rental fee and equipment costs to keep up our paging system. And then the fire department call dispatching, that's a cost to us that comes in from Lindsay CAC, Central Ambulance Communications Center. And that's what it costs for them to initiate our call outs. They receive the 911 calls, process it, and get us moving. Any questions there? Okay, move on. So emergency management training exercise. This is the emergency management side of the fire department. We don't touch on this too much, but we need to carry on with this stuff as our annual obligations for emergency management through the province. So it's costing us. We've been consulting and having this done out by other departments. Emergency Management Group has been our representative for the last couple of years, and they've been providing us with the training, and that covers the exercise. And this is what we've been doing. This was a collaborative effort with the 4 other municipalities so that we can bring all of our training into alignment to help make our emergency management system work with their emergency management system. So if we had a large event, and rather than us as emergency personnel being required to try and stay on location for 24 hours a day, we can bring in our counterparts from the neighbor municipalities, and everybody's trained on the same documentations, the same all of our file system, the same methods, all the terminology, so everybody understands that, and we can cover for each other within the county. That's sort of the goal there. Fire master plan here, it's listed as $40,000 there. That's the estimated total cost of that, and it was $20,000 had already been earmarked into this year's budget of 2023, and so the balance is to be paid in 2024.
So that's our portion of that, right, Dan?
This is our own fire master plan. Yes. So what happened was we were
Our
very
own,
lucky that the county went ahead and did the community risk assessment last year. And what happens is the community risk assessment, all of that information, all of that work done is the basis for the fire master plan, or it can be part of the basis for the fire master plan. So the county created a basis for us to start on this and save us a significant amount of money on a fire master plan. So it was to our advantage to have the fire master plan done at this time based on that.
Dan, is this a recurring yearly cost, that $40,000?
No, fire master plans, my understanding, are usually done on average about every 10 years.
So this is like a one-off this year, because your budget increase is really only $32,000 over last year. And if this is a big part of that, then that is a big part of your budget increase.
Yes, it would be, I guess, in that case. So, I mean, I haven't asked for any real capital stuff. I'm happy to say I've inherited a building that Chief Isles had put a bunch of effort into, and we seem to be in pretty good shape here with that stuff. I do know, and I'm talking to Barbara earlier this year, and thank you very much to council. I'm anticipating costs of vehicles going up, and that's why I had asked to start the process for the replacement of that one vehicle, but that's not expected to be done until 2026. So looking ahead, if there's any way we can, I spoke with Barbara about trying to get more into the reserves, because I think we're going to have more coming together a couple years apart here. And so this is a chance that it's nice that we have a more flat budget ideally. So. Okay, we'll move on then.
Yep.
So vehicle repairs and maintenance, unfortunately, we had a really bad year there for maintenance costs this year. We had a lot of issues. Fire pumper number 2, our newest truck, there we had an issue with the brakes, and although it's a newer vehicle, we have been able to basically, we've had the company International reprogram the truck. That's just what we're up to with modern electronics and stuff like that. And we had to replace the brakes, but we have had the truck changed, so it's not what it was activating the brakes on its own, like your ABS system. And we had that as an issue, and now they have changed the programming, so they're not activating. So hopefully, we're not going to have that cost. That was a big, substantial cost only a couple years after getting the truck. As you're aware, we've had to replace a motor in the one truck. And then just in general, I think the costs just increasing on maintenance costs in general. So we've tried to put this up a little bit to be prepared a little bit more for next year. Yeah, so you can see that's a picture from a while ago, but even the fire trucks, even with all the maintenance and the hard work we put in to try and keep things ready, sometimes things go out of our control. Sure, everyone does that with their own vehicle, unfortunately. Next.
Okay.
So that was all I had. So if there's anything else that anyone's thought of before I leave?
Any other questions? Yeah. No, it sounds like we're good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I've made a note. I will go back and try and review the wages so we can have a better answer, better clarification on to the difference that you were looking at there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Have a great day.
Yeah, we can take 5 minutes, and then we'll do a Carl then. That's where we're asking them all to get.
Only building, not bylaw.
Okay, good. Okay,
All right, so with
Carl?
building, we're only going to focus on the changes. We're not going to go line by line items. We're just going to focus on the changes from 2023 to 2024. So the site alteration bylaw, so that was something new that we brought in 2023, but how we're going to deal with it in 2024. So that's going to be a bit of a change. So we're going to kind of implement that with our sewage system maintenance program by doing that lake health report program that we brought to council. We still don't have a final plan on that yet. We're still going to run that past our committee with our 2 members of council. We're also going to be, looking out while we're on sites for construction, making sure silt fencing is in place, those types of things, educating the contractors of, how to do silt fencing, those types of things. We're not going to go out with ticket books to target our builders, just educate them that this has to be in place. Then we are our sewage system maintenance program. So we're going to be running that a little bit differently. We're going to cut down the number of inspections, just because we have issues with our basically our partners in the industry keeping up with the number of issues that we're finding and repairs that need to be completed. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be partnering that up with the short-term rental bylaw. So we're going to be doing the inspections of the short-term rentals along with the sewage system maintenance program, as well as doing a lake health report. So we're going to be spending more time on the properties. So there might be an increase in fee because of that. with the STR bylaw, there is a fee that's already been set. A lot of that is to do with licensing, but it'll also cover the inspections. We're not going to be inspecting every STR every year. We're going to be doing basically once every 5-6 years, maybe, with these STR inspections. So just to keep that in mind as something that's going to change. So staff training, again, this is continuing constantly. We do have new staff, but there's also constant training because there's so many qualifications that our staff need to obtain to be able to be full building inspectors. Right now, they're qualified to inspect probably 95% of the projects out there, but you know, continuing with these education, small buildings and building services is what we're running. That's going to allow people to inspect those buildings, our staff. We're also opening up these courses to the other area building inspectors as well as designers, if they want to be starting in designing of small buildings. So new building code expected to be implemented in 2024. I don't think anybody's happy about this one. You know, the province wants all this new housing, but you know, bringing out new, you know, basically roadblocks. Because everybody's going to have to get up to date with this new code. The energy efficiency portion is going to be completely overhauled. And just everybody's going to have to learn that again. It's not great, but with that, there's going to be new training that's required, as well as you know, new code books overall. With the building department itself, again, we do take in significant revenue with our permit fees. We did increase our permit fees in January, but decreased our septic our septic permit fees as well. So with that, we're going to bring up our building permit fees to offset any balance of our expenditures, so that our net operating budget is zero. We also do have a healthy reserve in our building permit building permit reserve. So basically anything over and above what it takes to our costs of running the department are put into reserves every year. So they go into capital purchases, like things like buying vehicles, all those items. I did a quick analysis just for some additional information. So I've been here since 2017. And we're just looking at because every year it seems like we're getting busier and busier, and I just wanted to take a look. So from 2014, and I used 2014 because that's when we started tracking permit numbers, but it's also when we took over septic permits from the health unit. So from 2014 to 2022, there was 107% increase in permit numbers. That's like over doubling the building permits that we've been issuing since 2014. Building permits themselves. So from 2016, when I started, so from 2016 to 2022, we've had a 50% increase in the building permits. And that same time frame, we've had 95% increase in septic permits. And a big part of that is with our sewage system maintenance program. So we are, you know, it is continually getting busy. It's not my, you know, just my, just my outlook on it, but it is definitely getting busy, and every year seems to be increasing what we're doing. So just throwing that out there as information as well. Any questions on the building portion?
Questions on the building portion? No.
Carl, I heard there's 2,200 changes to that building code that's coming this year. You heard the same?
Yeah, there's lots. Yeah. Yeah, I've looked at the big changes, and so some of the bigger changes with regards to residential, we're dealing with going to be dealing with shear walls, which isn't a bad thing because we have a lot of those you know, window walls or tall walls you know, facing the lake. Those types of walls are going to have shear walls built into them so that they're reinforced better. Otherwise, energy efficiency is the other big change, and but otherwise it doesn't look like there's too many issues.
I see.
Okay.
Like how are they?
So if I may, can I just mention something as well, Carl? In your budget this year, we are actually drawing $100,000 from the deferred revenue fund, the building deferred revenue fund, to mitigate some of the deficit within the building budget this year.
Can you explain that a bit more? Sorry.
Yeah, so essentially fees cover costs in a year where there's a surplus in building activity. That money is channeled into a reserve and it's considered deferred revenue. And then in years where potentially there is a deficit, which happens to be in 2024, you can draw that deferred revenue to mitigate the net impact on the tax levy. So essentially, in 2024, we brought in 100,000 of that revenue to assist with the deficit that we're looking at in building right now, $53,000 deficit. Without that deferred revenue, it'd be $153,000 deficit. And essentially, with the building permit revenue and the septic reinspection revenue dropping, that's where the deficit is.
Okay, so it could be a situation where we, because of these numbers, we would have to look at increasing our building permit fees to bring that up a little higher. So with our building permit fees, in comparison with anybody outside of Haliburton County, we're all essentially the same, but anybody outside of Haliburton County, per square footage of in our permit fees, we're about half of what all the other municipalities are. So it might be something that we'd have to look at increasing our building permit fees if we're off that much. So I didn't notice that 100,000. I thought we were only 53,000 out of that deferred revenue, or sorry, the off, but 153,000. So that's a significant amount that we're going to have to try and make up. So so there might be a plan to increase building permit fees slightly.
Unless we get a surprise with them all in the buildings and big buildings.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's hard to it's dartboard trying to figure out what you're going to get the next year, right? And so we like to use our past figures. And I know that I think for our building permit fees for 2024, we only put in 400,000. It's going to be higher than that, but you know, is it going to be 153,000 more? No. So those are things that we're going to have to that we might have to look at to bring that number up.
Or do 600 and septic
Well,
inspections instead of 5.
Yeah, so something along those
Okay.
lines, right? So yeah, we want to again try to do something that's reasonable and
Right.
you know, because we do have a lot of money in our building permit reserve, we can eat some of that
Yep.
cost this year and you know, maybe increase it slightly this year and then next year slightly again, rather than one big
Right.
big
One
increase.
big
So
kick.
we don't want to do that. We never want to do that. So that might be something that we look at doing.
And what areas are we doing this year?
We're doing Harcourt,
Harcourt.
yeah.
Oh, there's big problems out there.
Yeah, so we're breaking it up into Harcourt as one area and the remainder of that area as a second area. So we're gonna break that up into 2
I think
years.
they might find some on Benor Lake. What do you think?
Maybe. Yeah, you're doing Harcourt Park?
Yeah, so Harcourt Park, I think we're going to save till the second year. So we're gonna do all the other areas in next year and then Harcourt Park the following year.
So in
Uh,
2025.
They did one, didn't they, in Harcourt Park? But
Yeah, I think all of them had to be done by 2015 themselves, within themselves, but it would be
Yeah.
due if it
They
was.
wouldn't
5
do it
years.
the same way either. So.
Yeah, they had their own program there and dealing with their environmental officer, they've got a person that looks at the environmental portion of it. So we have a good working relationship with them and yeah, it's not as bad as we thought Harcourt Park would be, but we'll get there in our last year.
Nancy?
I just wanted to ask Barbara, is there something, like, is there one specific thing that put the building department's budget under by that amount last year or over, sorry?
So yes, if I may, essentially, you're looking at a 78,500 reduction in building permit revenue and also 61,500 in septic reinspection revenue, a decrease. So the sum of those two, you're looking at about $140,000, which is what created the swing.
Carl, most of that, the septic reduction is because we reduced the fees, I'm guessing there. Our numbers of septic inspections weren't that far off, or?
Sorry, let me take a look. No, sorry, that our septic permit fees are still the same. So it's still 160,000. It's the septic reinspection. So we basically half that because we're going to be doing half the inspections.
Gotcha.
So that's why we cut that down. It's just the septic maintenance.
Just-
portion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's something that we'll have to look at a little bit more with regards to our building permit numbers. And again, we can put up our building permit revenue. Just I don't think we're going to get the whole 153,000 on there, but without increasing our permit fees. So we'll have to look at that and explore those avenues.
If we could, Carl, when we come back to the next round of reviewing this stuff, we get more numbers on paper, maybe to have a look at on that note too.
Sure. All right, so bylaw enforcement, moving on. So significant changes over 2023. So we have our short-term rental bylaw expecting 2024. So that's probably going to trigger some additional complaints. So we do have a service through, again, it depends on which, how it's going to be run. We haven't selected the agency yet, but so there's going to be a 24-hour hotline where if it's a short-term rental, those there'll be a number that they can call, and through that agency, they will contact the owner of the property to identify that there's an issue. That owner is going to have to respond within a certain amount of time, whatever, but our bylaw officers are also going to follow up on those issues as well. Parking meters, medical center gate revenue, again, we've eliminated that right now we're still going with a 2-hour parking limit, but just going to enforce that with signs and through complaint basis. We have the training for new staff. So what we've done is with bylaws, we've appointed one of our bylaw officers. So with Rob's no longer with the municipality, we're going a different route with our bylaw enforcement. So we have one bylaw enforcement that's a supervisor, and they're going to be training the newer bylaw officer or being the lead, and that's going to take a lot of emphasis off myself with bylaw enforcement, which is appreciated. I could put more effort into building and those items as well. So that's a relief for myself. And we're going to be considering basically an orders bylaw this year. So if anybody remembers what we did with the building bylaw last January, we implemented into the bylaw itself a $500 order maintenance fee. So basically anybody who has an outstanding order, we're going to be following up every month with a $500 invoice saying, look, this is still outstanding. It's basically a babysitting fee for these orders. We're going to be doing the same with bylaw. So any bylaws that we have, we're going to have council recognize that we're going to use work orders, identifying any deficiencies, any contraventions. And if those orders haven't been resolved within the due date, then we're going to have that same idea, is we're going to follow up with that $500 a month fee to try to get to get these cleaned up. It's just another tool for the toolbox, but it is also going to generate revenue from those people that choose not to correct their deficiencies within the time frame identified. So those are things that we're going to be implementing this winter. Just to give council a heads up that these are coming for consideration. Okay. Any questions with bylaw?
Questions? This, I'm getting, I've kept it away from you people yet, but I'm getting a lot of complaints about buildings, derelict buildings. Like Country Roads, for instance.
Right.
Like, what do we do with something like that?
So because it's an existing building, it would fall under property standards. So similar to what the Wiggamog, so any existing building that is, like it's a property standards issue that. Correct, yes. Yeah.
I have a question, about the hotline. How much is that going to cost? Do you know yet?
So we're going to be reviewing the RFP submissions December 19th at the county. So we'll determine which
Will we know what that is? Like when if it's done this month, will you bring that back to let us know what our share is in it?
so yeah, the next time the SGR bylaw comes back to council, then we'll definitely have all that information available with regards to the services that they're going to provide and the costs for that.
Do you know a ballpark figure of what you're looking at for costs?
I'm not offhand, no, sorry. I know that we've dealt with anticipated costs, but I don't recall what those are.
Okay.
So I have to ask a stupid question. So the building reserve fund can't be used for bylaw then?
Correct. It's, yeah, the Building Code Act actually, the Building Code, it regulates what the Building Reserve Fund could be used for. It's got to be direct or indirect costs of the building department.
Right.
So one of the things that we are doing is, so we're covering portion of salary of the bylaw officers because they're going to be following up on our orders and doing that. So we are covering portion of their wages. Yeah.
Any questions? Well, there you go. Thanks, Carl. Everybody good? Thank you. Guess we don't need to spend a lot of time on the policing. That's the OPP charge, isn't it? 2 million?
Yes.
It's right on the bottom of the bylaw sheet. Please, Fred. Page 404. Bylaw. Oh.
Maybe he's looking for stuff that was even.
Oh, I got something nobody else has got. Boy, that's a treat. Anyway, it's the OPP. Can't do much about that one. 2,150,000. That's what they're charging us for services.
Does it indicate how many, does it break down how many officers we get or
No.
time or anything? That's a
But-
provincial.
They just got 6 more new officers in Minden. So quite a few more in county, and we'll likely get a bigger bill next year too. But we need them.
We do.
But they do have to look at the fact that those new officers have to be paired with an officer.
Yeah.
So you really not have
No,
the number to be out on their own.
until they get some
patrolling.
training, yeah. Okay. I guess Rob is next, right?
Well, our next presenter is Kate from the museum.
Alrighty. Well, hello, everyone.
Okay, take it away, Kate.
Thanks, Barbara. So Halberton Highlands Museum, as I'm sure all of you know, and we were founded as a Canadian Centennial Project. So we've been around for quite a while now. We've been sharing, celebrating, and preserving our community's history since the 1960s. In terms of the layout of the museum, you can see in the picture here, that's our main gallery space, which was built in 1980, well, officially opened in 1980. But in addition, the museum also has a series of historic buildings, which date back to the 1870s and 1880s, located in Glebe Park. Now, all of those historic buildings have actually been moved from different locations around Halberton County to sit where they currently do in Glebe Park. Next. Thanks, Barbara. So in terms of some of the things that the museum provides, I mean, certainly, history is the name of the game. Telling our community stories, keeping our community's history safe, and showcasing it for our residents, our year-round residents, our seasonal residents, and also visitors to the area. So serving all of those different segments of the community. Museums are very much community spaces. And that's something that continues to grow in terms of what museums do. Being a community space is very important. And that idea of being a community hub has become a key part of museums and how museums are thought of now. Museums also provide opportunities to learn new skills for people in the community. There have been all kinds of studies done looking at the ways in which museums improve health and well-being. So some of you may be aware of even projects that are ongoing now, looking at how you can provide social prescriptions. So rather than someone advising you to take medication, you might be advised to visit a cultural institution, and that they can improve health and well-being in that kind of way. It's also all about community identity, and as I said, for our year-round and seasonal residents, giving people an understanding of our community story as that sense of belonging as well. We start right with the little kids, all the way up to seniors in our community. And also it's a way to share our community and its stories widely. We have actually had people come and visit the museum who said that they first got interested because they happened to follow us on social media. And it was part of the reason why they wanted to come and visit Halberton County, was they thought there was all this interesting history, and then discovered all the other additional cool things about our community. So lots going on. Next, please. All right. So in terms of some key museum revenue pieces for 2024, looking at admissions and donations, we also we offer books for sale. So some of you may remember Halberton History and Pictures was a book that we published a few years ago. We have not saturated the market yet. There is still lots of sales ongoing, and also our yearly operating grant, which seems to yearly sit at $16,224. Next. So just a few things in terms of museum expenses. And of course, wages and benefits for a director and curator, plus also an additional museum assistant position to provide help during the busy summer period, but also perhaps the option to provide assistance when at other busy times during the year, because it's not just summer that's busy. One of the things that we've really noticed over the years is that even those times we used to think of as shoulder season or what used to be downtime in Halberton County, it isn't anymore. It's getting busier and busier year round. Other pieces of the picture, programming and events, exhibits and conservation, advertising, cleaning for our buildings. We have a great team that comes in and does that for us. Office supplies, computer equipment and support. County IT does great stuff there, helping us out. Also staff training, training within the museum sector, but also covering things like, just keeping our first aid and that sort of stuff up to date. Essential utilities. So, looking at hydro and heating and phones and those sorts of things. I should mention that this year we actually, we did have a new heating and cooling system, new furnace installed for the museum. It's working great, and we're very grateful to have it because the one that we had was really very much at the end of its life. So yeah, we're very pleased to have that and have it running smoothly. Just the other thing on the list there, insurance. So yeah, just a few key pieces there. Next, please. Now, in terms of maintenance and capital, there's a couple of things that need to talk about here. So as I mentioned, we do have a whole series of buildings which date back to the 19th century. And that means that they do need maintenance. And need it, well, fairly often. So we have been doing some work to do some maintenance work on Reed House. Now, Reed House was the museum's original home when the museum first opened in the 1960s. It's a village home from 1882. So we have been doing some work. There's been work done so far on the basement to deal with some dampness issues. There's also been, we've cleared trees around the house to also help just in terms of ventilation. We were looking at dealing with the chimneys. Essentially, the chimneys on the building are spalling. They're trying to go sideways rather than up and down anymore. And we don't want that on a chimney. So looking at the removal of those, but I've been advised, Rob Parrish has been doing amazing work, trying to organize this, but I've had advice from him that really we should be looking at getting the roof of Reed House replaced. Now, we have had money in the budget previously to try and do some of that maintenance work, and some of that money can then, I hope, be carried forward because it's just, from what I understand, there have just been some challenges in terms of tracking down contractors who are available to come and do some of that work. As I know you've all heard, contractors in Haliburton County are busy, and there are even contractors coming in from outside the area to serve people living in the community, just because local contractors are so busy. So yes, so I have been advised that we should be looking at replacing the roof on Reed House. And speaking of roofs, there's also there's a quite major issue with the roof of the 1870s historic barn, which is down at our farmstead. It's a cedar shake roof, and we've had some issues with the shakes coming loose. It's basically the roof is at the end of its life. We've pushed it beyond the end of its life, and it now has gaps in the roof. We've been trying to hold it over. We've tried tarping the roof just to try and get us a little further, but the tarps only last so long, and it's a major amount of work for Rob and whoever's assisting him to try and do that. We had hoped through some grant money that we might be able to get some grant money to apply to that project. Hopefully, we were hoping for this year for 2023. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. I am still on the lookout for other programs that might be able to help us with that. But at the moment, as things stand, yes, we have an 1870s barn, which yes, has, I suppose I could say, unintentional skylights. So that is a concern because the barn does have agricultural equipment, historic agricultural equipment inside, and we want to keep that, what's inside, as safe as possible. So just wanted to mention that. And I believe that's my last slide.
You have an estimate on that?
So in terms of the roof barn, I believe the last estimate I heard, unless Rob has given you something, or has Rob given you anything recently in terms of?
Not on the farmstead, the roof
No.
barn. Yeah, yeah.
I feel like we were looking at 25,000 for that, but I can go and double check those figures.
I was in that barn and there's more daylight than shingles in that. It does need to be done, but I think that 25,000 is a stretch. I don't know what they were gonna replace it with, whether it's steels or shingles again, but to me, it does need to be done. I just gotta wind the
Nice
number
to do-
down.
Nice to do shingles, but man, not everybody can do them now and they're
Yeah.
expensive. No, you won't do them for 25 to 35 or 40. I think we should risk.
Or whether
steel.
the other angle is if we went steel, whether somebody could donate steel, like it's not like we're building a new building that houses people and everything else. It's agricultural equipment. So if somebody was stripping a building off or whatever, they had extra steel, that would be a good spot for it. But anyway, suggestion.
Yeah, in an ideal world, we would love to see a cedar shake roof on it again, because like that would be, that is traditional for the barn. But yeah, recognizing that there may need to be a compromise there, and to do something as a steel roof, just in order to get something on there and something that will have hopefully a longer lifespan as well. So definitely recognize that, that could well be the best option.
Pete, I have to ask you, I asked the fire chief the same question. In your wages, it looks like you used about $110,000 in 2023. You budgeted 127. Now we're up to 135. That's $20,000 difference. I'm not nickel and diming you, but we're looking for money here.
Actually, if I could just jump in there, those numbers that you're looking at for 2023 are year-to-date November, so they're not a full 12 months.
Yeah, I
So,
Bring that to us.
maybe look at those numbers and annualize them.
Well, if you took the average month per month in which they're on salary, that would put that to 110,000, not 127. And then you jump to 135. I'm just asking you to look at it.
Yeah, and actually, good observation, and the 2023 budget for the museum did include a summer student. However, that did not transpire, so that's where you're seeing the reduction in the annualized amount.
And I did see something else here. I've forgotten where it was. It was quite a substantial jump too. Can't find it now. Okay, I can't find it, so I'll talk to you later about it, Barb. I will find it.
Sure.
Okay. Any questions? Everything good with Kate then? Okay, thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Okay, next on deck is planning, and that would be Jeff.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So this is version 1 of the Planning and Land Information Department budget. I'm going to go through this quite quickly, but feel free to ask any questions. Next slide, please.
Don't worry, we will.
I imagine you will. I am just going to quickly touch on application revenues today, expenses, the Cultural Resources Committee, GIS, and then lastly, I will summarize the overall budget. Next slide, please. So starting with revenues, this graph shows the application numbers based on application type. The application numbers continue on an upward trend every year, with minor fluctuations depending on that application type. For 2023, we are projecting an increase, as you can see, and then for 2024, I am going to project a slight increase. These projections are typically based on a 3-year average of application numbers. Next slide, please. So this graph highlights the revenues received from those applications. And again, they are broken down by application type. In correlation with those application numbers, revenues are ahead of projections for this year. As you can see, certain application types project to fall short, but others continue to exceed projections, specifically minor variance applications, severance proposals, and licenses of occupation. Overall, though, application revenues continue to increase. And again, we're including just a slight bump for 2024. Next slide, please. So this just shows the total revenues received from planning applications. 2023 is up. We're expecting approximately $159,000. This exceeds what we were budgeting for, which by about $13,500. For projections for this coming year, for 2024, we're looking at roughly a 4% increase over the 2023 base values. Next slide, please. Yeah, so moving on to expenses, the big ticket items remain consistent from year to year. These include staffing and legal services. One item of interest for 2024 is the Cultural Resources Committee budget. I do have a slide on that later, so I'll touch on that. And as you can see, other expenses relate to training and development, as well as committee of adjustment per diems. Next slide, please. Yeah, so taking a closer look at our legal and consulting fees. In 2023, these funds were mostly used or allocated to ongoing legal matters, as well as support for some development projects. For 2024, we do have one active appeal to a planning application right now. One of the big increases this year is I'm requesting an increase in consulting fees. This is a placeholder for an amendment to the municipality's official plan. These funds aren't always used, but again, we always request them just to plan for possible scenarios. Next slide, please. Moving on to the Cultural Resources Committee. So this slide outlines their requests. In 2023, they completed many tasks, including the mural wall of sports heroes, the downtown sculpture project, and the creation of a dry stone sculpture at the library. For 2024, the committee recommends an update to the cultural plan. And I apologize, the proposal is not for a new cultural plan as my slide suggests, but instead a review and an update of the existing cultural plan.
Is that done by the cultural group themselves, or are they getting a consultant for that?
I don't know the answer to that, but my assumption is that is going to be required for consulting work. I can find out that and get back to you.
How often is that plan reassessed, reevaluated, or rewritten? Does it have a time frame the same as our stuff?
So it was originally adopted, I believe, in 2012, and it was supposed to run for 10 years. So it has run its life. I believe during that 10-year plan, it was supposed to be reviewed after 5 years, which was done. So I think that's why they're looking to just review it and update it. So the committee is also proposing a rededication of public space with indigenous heritage. And lastly, to offset these expenses for 2024, there is a carryover of $4,500 from 2023, which brings the total to approximately $13,300.
Jeff,
Next.
you said something about the murals on the wall, on the arena wall.
Yep.
What type of an expense did they incur there?
I would have to go back and look at their budget, and I can get back to you on that.
I thought the Hodgson family was.
Yeah, but there was money raised for that, I thought.
Yeah, they were already.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I can speak to that question from council on the mural. That particular project was totally funded by donations.
Jeff, I'm
The
wondering.
mural.
Sorry, Barb. Go ahead. Oh, I wondered if, Jeff, if we could get some more detailed numbers from the cultural committee, like $5,000 for the dedication of public space, plus what we just heard there a bit ago. I'm a bit confused as to where the allocations are versus what they're asking, but anyway. Just
Yep,
you can
we
see
can
the
come back
budget.
with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and in terms of the mural wall, I was just highlighting some of the projects that they were doing. They don't all necessarily come with a budget line item.
Just for clarity too, Jeff doesn't work with that committee anymore. It's just still within his budget.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so he couldn't answer it directly.
So if that's all the questions for this committee, moving on to the next slide, please. And this is GIS. So this is software and plotter costs. CityView is our internal GIS and permitting software and is used by most departments. The fee includes 9 full-time licenses and 2 summer licenses for the septic system review program. In my opinion, these costs are easily recovered in staff production and data management. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is my last slide. Overall, looking at a net planning increase of approximately 51,000. This equates to about 11.8%. But yeah, that's it. That ends my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked every other department head. I keep looking at the wages here. I don't know how we're calculating these, but I see to the end of November, you spent 330. That's 33,000 a month. That's 365,000. But we got 420 in the budget. And so that's looks like it's 50,000 more than it was. So I just think I'd like you to have a look at that. Something wrong with these numbers. Unless you hire another person that you're not telling us.
No, we're not looking at any new staff this year, but I can go back and talk to finance and look at that for you.
Well, that'd be great. And Barbara will work with you on that. Sure. The rest of it looks like it's pretty straightforward.
Barbara, in these estimations for all the wages in all the departments, does that includes like the increase in the cost of benefits and stuff, like broken down department wise as well, right?
Yes, so all the wages include a 3% placeholder increase.
Yeah, and the benefits are on a separate line.
So benefits, there really is no change year over year, just based on our recent renewal as aggregate.
Okay. So you're up 51,000 then, Jeff, right?
Correct.
No. Yeah. Couldn't be in that. Anyways, well, we'll we'll ask them to have another look at it. For sure. Anything else for Jeff? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next presenter will be Andrea Miller for Parks and Recreation.
Morning.
Yes. Yeah, hello.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
right.
If you're
So-
ready, Andrea.
I'm ready. We can go on to the next slide.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So I just wanted to give you some of the highlights of what the Parks and Recreation Department covers. This doesn't include everything, but it's some of the day-to-day duties. There's maintaining the parks and public boat launches, playground safety inspections, cleaning all portable washrooms and the Welcome Center washrooms, garbage removal in the downtown core and all parks, winter snow removal from municipally owned buildings, so particularly around the entryways and sidewalks, winter snow removal from designated pathways, creating and facilitating recreation programs, special events, coordination, planning, and management, assisting with grant applications and funding, management and operation of the Haliburton Welcome Center, operating the arena, maintaining municipally owned buildings, and water testing at all municipally owned buildings. Next slide. So at the arena, the ice is maintained for usually 10 months of the year from July 1st to the Easter long weekend. So obviously that shifts depending when Easter is. We each year for the past many years, there's been $10,000 put into the Zamboni Reserve for a 10-year replacement, and same thing with $5,000 for an arena truck. And the capital expenses this year or capital requests are low compared to, I guess, some previous years. One is a water cooling treatment system, and this is to do with a safety concern in the compressor room. Black and Mac has said that there's concern that if this treatment system isn't there, that there's could be airborne disease if it's left the way it is. So they're just saying this would help to eliminate the risk of any airborne diseases that are associated with the water cooling system at the arena. And then also a water softener system. The current system is clogging the pipes and making it so that it's not running as efficiently. So if a water softener system were put in place, it would help save costs in electricity and wear and tear over time, and the cost to do that would be $8,000. Next slide. So our staff, I just wanted to give you an idea of what we have in the Parks and Recreation Department. We have a director of Parks and Rec, a manager of programs and events, an arena supervisor, maintenance and facilities operator, parks laborers, arena operators, and then we have a seasonal arena operator as well. And in that slide, you can see Rob digging out the septic system, the sewage system at the museum when there were some issues earlier this spring. Next slide. This map here, I know it's hard to see. I do have a Google Map version where you can click on each icon and see what's highlighted at each spot. There's overlaps in some of the areas. Our staff in the summer months remove garbage and recycling at 120 different, or they have 120 different canisters within the Parks Department. That number does decrease in the winter when they're working on snow removal, but as soon as the snow is gone, those garbage and recycling containers are put back to all the locations. Cleaning washrooms, so 10 sites, that includes portable toilets and the Welcome Center. Snow removal at 10 different locations. Outdoor rinks, we have 3 of those. Parks and playground maintenance inspections, so that's at anywhere where there's a playground. The equipment has to be inspected. There's 28 boat launches to be maintained, 7 public beaches, trail maintenance, so that's like the Dry River Trail and parts of the Head Lake Trail. There's grass cutting areas, which includes even the EMS building out in Torrey Hill, year-round water testing at 12 locations. And that has actually just ramped up. It used to be that they had to test water monthly. Now it's becoming every other week. So that's another big draw on staff time. And spring, summer, fall water testing is, we have 4 outdoor taps that get closed off for the winter, but in this spring, summer, and fall, they also have to fall into that testing regime. Next slide. So this again, this shows you some of the water testing locations and where they have to go. So, you know, up at Fira, where there's up by Halliburton Lake, the Harcourt Community Center, which actually is not on that list, Curling Club, Canoe FM, any of the buildings basically that we own, where the public are and where there's water. Next slide. So in the Parks Department, and we're looking for capital for an outdoor privy for Head Lake Park. The Welcome Center washrooms in the summer months are open until 5 p.m. We anticipate that there will be, we have already received comments about the lack of washroom facilities in the evening hours when it's nice outside, and with the new playground and with the park being busier, we anticipate some call for washroom facilities. There is a set on the Rotary Beach side, but a lot of people either don't want to walk that far or just aren't aware of it. I mentioned before in one of our council reports that the Red Pine boat launch is in need of repair. The dock, in the bottom left corner, there's a picture of the dock. The Current has done a number on it. It's not safe anymore, and so staff are looking to replace that boat launch, or that dock, and to refurbish the boat launch. There's a picture where it's you can see some drainage where the gravel is washed out. So again, just fixing that area. It's used quite extensively by residents on Red Pine Lake, as well as going into the water trails, which I know isn't our property, but it gets a lot of use. And then we can now publicly announce that we received a $150,000 grant to replace, or to put in a Harcourt Park playground. So we met with some community members and Councillor Donaldson at the end of October, saying if we were to receive funding. So now we're going to put together a meeting in January, put out a tender process to see what we can get for the $150,000 from including everything, and bring some reports back to council. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the maintenance plan items. Some of these things you may have come up in other areas. In the cemetery, there's some really old cement benches. So looking to replace 2 of those. One was replaced this fall, and looking to replace the other 2 in the spring. The medical center, the drainage at the rear of the building, that's a carryover just to fix that. The weather got the better of us before that could be done. Harcourt Community Center, now that there's a privy there, there's the pump out for that. The arena, there's a request for security cameras for the exterior of the building and the parking lot. There have been some issues in the parking lot area, and unfortunately the camera that's at the skate park doesn't cover into the parking lot far enough. Also a wireless camera to monitor the sensors in the refrigeration room, and this is carryover. So that's in the works right now. The ice logos that go in the middle of the ice, they're at the end of their life. So we're looking to get those replaced. That would be a cost for this year, but then they last for many years to come. Duct cleaning at the West Guildford Community Center, restaining the timbers at the band shell, and also a request for a swing gate leading on the pathway leading to the band shell. It seems almost daily that there's somebody that tries to drive down the path, and it's just a concern for us if there's kids running to the playground or somebody walking their dog and somebody pulls in rather quickly. We figure if there's a swing gate, that it will help to deter that. Even in the winter when there's snow fencing up for the snowmobile parking area, people are still driving onto that pathway. We did install swing gates on the Rotary Beach side. They were manufactured by a local manufacturer. And so the cost that we have quoted there is on par. And then for other parks, we're looking at $5,000 for the boat launch repairs and general maintenance. And then the portable and holding tank pump out is estimated at $4,750 for the 2024. Next slide. So at the Welcome Center, we have a full-time recreation and tourism assistant who works at the Welcome Center Monday to Friday and helps keep an eye on the washrooms. And then there's 3 to 5, depending on the year, casual tourism ambassadors that cover the weekend shifts, and then in the summer help to staff the Welcome Center or stay late for the Rotary Music in the Park or the other events that go on. They're interacting with residents from far and near. We've had people in from India this year and people that come in on a regular basis that live locally just to find out what's going on. The visitor count between January 1st and October 31st of 2023 versus 2024 went up over 1,000 people, or sorry, 2023 versus 2022 went up over 1,000 people. One thing to take into consideration is we're only counting the people that come in through the front doors and interact with staff and ask questions. We have no idea how many people are using the exterior washrooms. So we know that number is far surpasses what's on the screen there. Next slide, please. So as far as recreation programs and events go, I am looking at introducing a couple new programs or events. I also know that there's community members, I believe, that are going to come and do a presentation either January or February to council. They're looking at trying to bring 3 new events to the park and to the Haliburton area. So some of the things that we have are ball hockey, youth soccer. Our youth soccer was at capacity in 2023. Women's only soccer, we had about 50 women registered. The Jolly Jog. We do March break programs at the museum and some summer programs, public skating opportunities. We've increased that and the public seems to be quite happy with that. There's a possibility for a track and field program. We're just working on that at the moment with some volunteers and partners. Programming with school groups that visit the museum. There's line dancing upstairs at the arena once a week. There's the library equipment loan program, and some of that equipment has actually been moved over to the Welcome Center just so that people can access it a little bit more easily. Color Fest, the fun in February, is ready to kick off soon. And then there's a new possible festival that I'd like to propose, which shouldn't really cost us much, but I'll bring a report forward to council in January or February for a Haliburton Village Festival of Lights to hopefully take place in November, December of 2024. Next slide, please. All right, I think that's it. Sorry, questions?
Okay, yeah.
I have one question. Did you get the request from the Haliburton Lake Park? Is that included in there?
It's in the budget, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. Where you want to put the swing gate in the park? Why are people driving in there?
I think they think, I'm not sure if they think it's a continuation of, like they turn in off of York Street. And I don't know if they think it's a roadway or what they think. This year, the roads department had hashtags painted there. It hasn't helped. Some people that do that, I know, are definitely not familiar with the area because we've gone out and talked to them. But then there's been people like, I was there one day and somebody drove through erratically because they were looking for somebody and they sped on through and drove in, which is like, you can't be doing that. This isn't a roadway. We've had people think that they can drive right up to the bandshell and just have a picnic there. So there's different reasons or different thought processes that people have.
I don't want to make fun of this, but I hope they weren't looking for the farmer's market. The contract services, you got $41,000. What is that for?
We have like Black and Mac. They come to start up and shut down the ice plant each year. We have Paul Robinson. He does. Pardon?
That's under Head Lake Park, not under the arena.
Oh, there's Gulf Green does the servicing of the Head Lake Park area. That's the big part of the grass cutting and everything. And as Barbara mentioned in an earlier slide, that has gone up in cost. So when we tendered out in 2019, they projected what their costs would be for the 4 years. But then have since learned, like coming out of COVID, especially the cost of flowers and everything has gone up basically 100%, they were saying. And staffing, it's been really hard for them to find somebody to maintain the flower beds. So that cost increase is more than usual just because of some of those services. And then there's things too, which when they've replaced a sprinkler head or where they've done some other work, they haven't always billed us for it. So I think they're trying to, it's showing now in 2024.
Okay, so then I'll go over to the other parks revenue, and there's a $50,000 in there for some kind of consulting, I guess. The master plan, which we don't follow anyway.
We don't have a we have a Head Lake Park master plan, but we don't have a Parks and Recreation master plan.
You mean we're contemplating doing one?
We've put it in there because there's a requirement under the Planning Act. Jeff can clarify that a little bit too, in terms of you need to have a parks master plan to be able to collect some of the funds that we do and so forth, and we don't.
Well, I'd like to see that. I just, we've got to,
It's about identifying the community needs going forward for the future, because they have to go through basically like any growth studies or anything else and determine what it is you need as to why.
you know, I don't know why government's asking us to do this stuff in these times. It's ridiculous. So if we don't have to do it, I don't think we should do it this year. But anyway,
We can
up
get
to
you more
council.
information on that, but
Yeah.
in order to
Very good.
keep doing
You're
things we're
gonna
doing,
have
we
to
need to.
convince me so far.
And-
And the same thing with the wages here. We're
Planning
jump-
as well, it's not
We're
just
jumping
grants.
from 240 to 305. That's a pretty substantial increase in wages for the parks.
Barbara, do you want to answer that?
Look here. Again, annualizing that November number. And if you look at the increased budget year over budget year, in 2023, we budgeted 280,000 and we're projecting 305,000 in
But we
2024.
didn't spend it, so why did we just keep bumping up what we budgeted last year if we don't need it?
Yeah.
I'd ask you to look at that again,
Yeah.
please. And there's a couple $100,000 here, pretty right on the top. And the same thing applies at the arena. Went from 355 at the end of 2023 to 427 for wages. I mean, that's a lot more than 3%.
We're not at year end yet, so those numbers aren't.
No, I've added
all
the
year.
year end in, averaging it for 11 months, so it won't be that far out.
How much traffic is at the Welcome Center, say after November 1st during the week?
It varies from day to day and it varies on the weather. If you give me a moment, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I can bring that to the council meeting on Tuesday. We do have spreadsheets with them. When I wrote the report for this, we hadn't finished the month of November yet, so I didn't include those numbers.
Yeah, okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot of little stuff there that we could talk about, but we'll let's deal with the big stuff first and see where we are with that, and then we'll go from there. Anything else for Andrea? Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
We're having fun.
I don't envy your position right now.
Not in these times, not fun. Okay.
So our next presenter is John Watson, and he'll be presenting the environment.
Oh, John, we can't hear you for some reason. Not yet. I can see your mouth moving, but I know it's not coming through yet. Not yet. I wonder if we want to take a short break to figure it out, or so Barbara, we're just taking a break. You can leave the screen up though. I think John's coming over to council chambers, just so you know.
It's fine. Thanks, Mallory.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm presenting the 2024 environmental management budget. We'll look at some of the practices and activities that took place in 2023. Next slide, please, Barbara. This year we received a $10,750 grant from the Carton Council of Canada to implement a food and beverage carton recycling education program. That program enabled us to distribute 3,000 reusable recycling bags to ratepayers to assist with their recycling at home. And it also included print advertisements and radio advertisements to promote the proper recycling of food and beverage cartons. In terms of the Food Cycler pilot project, Dysart implemented its pilot project in 2022. In this year, 2023, we received a Gold Promotion Education Award from the Municipal Waste Association for our pilot project. We were also presented at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference in February of 2023 and at the Ontario Food Collaborative in November of this year about the Food Cycler pilot project. And just out of interest, the City of Brisbane, Australia actually sought out our advice on our Food Cycler pilot project. And considering that it is a population of 2.8 million people, pretty impressive that we were being recognized internationally for that pilot project we did. Some final cover and grading taking place at the Haliburton and West Guildford landfills. We began regrading the back of the West Guildford landfill using fill from the Highway 118 construction. And we've begun regrading the back of the Haliburton landfill, including applying fill and final cover. And those are both requirements from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Next slide. Two major changes that we're looking at within the municipal waste management sector. The first is single tier waste management. This was actually a direction from the Haliburton Municipal Service Delivery Review. So the County of Haliburton had issued a request for proposals, which was ultimately awarded to Dillon Consulting. The county is contributing half of those costs for the consultant, and the 4 lower tier municipalities are each contributing 12.5% of the costs. We anticipate the final report and council presentations will take place in early 2024, and that is looking at how waste could be delivered at a single tier system within the county. The major change that we are about 3 weeks away from is our Blue Box transition. So as council is aware through a number of reports, including discussions this past Tuesday, there's a new Blue Box program that started in July of this year. We've executed an agreement with Circular Materials, which is the producer responsibility organization overseeing the residential Blue Box program. We transitioned to this new program on January 1st of 2024. Ratepayers will not see any changes, but the hauling and processing of Blue Box materials will now be covered by Circular Materials. And the entire province will move to this new program by the end of 2020, by the start of 2026. Next slide. This is just capturing from the 2024 budget the total revenue. So looking at all the revenue streams in the environmental waste management budget, we're looking at revenue of $1,214,000. And you can see the breakdown there of how those revenue streams appear, whether it be the sale of landfill cards, composters, digesters, scrap metal, the disposal or tipping fees that people pay to drop off materials, program funding, and then contributions from reserves. Next slide. In terms of expenses, in 2024, we're anticipating $2,698,000 in expenses. You can see the breakdown there from wages, benefits, hauling and processing for landfilling household hazardous waste days, environmental monitoring and studies, and then our operating costs of running our 5 sites, including additional information like our IT promotion education efforts. Next slide. Some of the projects we're looking at in 2024, one is an orange box, and the idea here is that ratepayers would be able to purchase a reusable orange box, similar to a blue box, but this would be used to collect household hazardous waste items in their homes to make it easier for them to transport to our household hazardous waste days. It also really helps to inform residents about what materials are accepted at those events. It makes it very easy when they get on site at those events to drop off their materials. And that's a program we're seeing implemented in other municipalities across the province. And we're in discussion with the other lower tier municipalities about how we could maybe partner on this program. Another program that will start in 2024 is a lighting recycling program. This is actually identified through a regulation, Ontario Regulation 52220. We're anticipating about $2,000 of revenue for that program. We're currently in negotiations with Product Care Association, which is the designated producer responsibility organization for lighting, and that would basically allow us to collect all types of lighting, such as incandescent bulbs, LED bulbs, CFL bulbs, fluorescent tubes at the Haliburton landfill. They would then be placed in drums and sent away for recycling, and we would be reimbursed per bulb collected, and that's where that $2,000 revenue is being budgeted for. And then finally, the county is doing a second wave of its Food Cycler pilot project. There have been pilots previously in Dysart, as was mentioned, Algonquin Highlands and Minden Hills. The county did a pilot project at the Food Cycler this year, 2023, and has already received pre-approval to implement a further pilot in 2024. And that would be completely funded through the county levy. Next slide. We'll also be putting $20,000 into the scales reserve. So by the end of 2024, we would have $140,000 in that reserve for the addition of a scale system at our landfill sites. And next slide, and any questions?
Questions?
Rob or Barb, in the revenue, incoming revenue, it indicates there's 272,000 contributions from reserves. So wouldn't that be more or less of a total revenue of $1 million if we're doing balanced budgets? Or like, I'm still a little foggy on if we're pulling from reserves to substitute the total revenue number. It's not really a true number if that's the case.
Sorry, Barbara, you just have mute.
Yeah, your mic's not on.
Okay, so the contribution from own funds is the transfers for the capital projects. We talked about the Haliburton landfill capping and a couple of projects that are happening at both the West Guildford and the Kinesis landfills. So that would be funding from our internal funds of the 1.2 million that we're looking at in total revenue. And then the balance would be through user fees or grant funding.
All right, thanks for that. When we come back to revisit this again, can we get more of a breakdown in terms of revenue and expense regarding such as C&D waste costs and expenses and everything else? I don't see anything here on this slide anyway. Maybe it's in the other. Okay. All right. All right, yeah, thanks for that. My own opinion of an orange box, with no offense to anybody who's thinking about it, I don't think we need another box to put a paint can in to get to the dump, my own opinion. Anyway, minor issue.
Anybody else got it?
Me again. How much did the food cycle program cost for the county? Does anybody have any idea?
I can't speak to the county project that they did this year. I'd have to look up that report to tell you what their subsidy is. They also receive funding from the federal government to offset some of their costs. And they're doing an application now currently for 2024 to offset some of the purchase prices.
Okay, I'd be interested to see those numbers, John.
Yeah, I can get you the county's report on that.
I can't remember what it was, but there was definitely a figure there. It was a cost. Hey, moving on, or are you done? Oh, that's fine. You got off pretty lucky, didn't you? Your wages are pretty close to being reasonable. Don't count on it. We wait for you.
Okay, so our next presenter is the Director of Public Works, Rob Camelon, and they'll talk about Public Works projects.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning, Mayor, members of council. What you're looking at here is very high level. We can have discussion on anything you like here. If there's something you want a deeper dive on, I can certainly answer as best I can today or bring something back to, even if it's a verbal next week at council or certainly for the next budget meeting. So first slide shows basically about 62% of my budget is capital. The lion's share is road resurfacing and bridge work. And the second part of that would be vehicles and equipment. Next slide, please, Barbara. So of my expenses, we are looking at nearly $6 million funded by taxation and 4.4 million from grants and reserves. Next one, Barbara. So jumping right into the capital, we are recommending 2 bridge projects move ahead. You are well aware of the Koshlong Lake Road Bridge incident we had last fall. We have a budget number in there of about $1.2 million. That includes moving the temporary bridge that's there now, as well as putting a detour in place to hopefully put culverts in place in lieu of a bridge. Our engineers are going back and forth with DFO right now, trying to get permission to put culverts in lieu of a clear span bridge. But that work is certainly ongoing. The Redstone Brook Bridge replacement, we did a feasibility study that was completed in 2022. It was finished around the time that we had the incident at Koshlong Lake. That's why this council hasn't seen it yet, but I will bring that report back. It did bring some recommendations for replacement. But we, as staff, we went with the cheapest option. We can certainly have a further discussion on that. Excuse me. So they are recommending replacing with a Lessard bridge, which is essentially what we have placed on top of the Koshlong Lake Bridge. It's a steel bridge prefabbed, and it will be elevated to make sure that the water doesn't push up against it. In the 2013 floods, we actually had the Redstone Brook was up to the bridge deck. It was pushing on the bridge. So they're recommending also raising that bridge. Both of those projects, we are recommending taking on debt to fund them over about 40 years. So.
Are they going to be ready for this year?
Yes, they can be. Say Koshlong is in the works now. I spoke with our engineer on Redstone Brook, so all the pre-engineering is completed. So about 4 weeks, we'll do the engineering on that. In the same breath, that could be deferred for a year if council wishes. I will caution you, though, there are a couple other bridges that are very much on the radar. So this council will be talking about bridges more than once during this term.
And if we do the Koshlong one, we always got that one for an emergency.
That's correct. Okay. Next slide, please, Barbara. So vehicles and equipment, you can see we have 3 snowplows ordered. We started ordering these back in 2021. The last time I spoke with our vendor, his response was, we are definitely getting one this year. We're probably getting 2. We might get 3. It just depends how they come off the line at the factory.
So Rob, is that gonna mess up like do some murmuring about how we have the 8-year cycle? So does that mean all at once, when their time is up, we're gonna have to be, because we had originally planned being able to do like 1 every year, but this is.
Ideally, you change one out every year.
Yeah.
That ship sailed.
Yeah.
So we're kind of back to where we started 10 years ago. So we're just gonna have to evaluate them a little closer when they come up, and maybe we hang on to 1 or 2 a little longer.
Okay.
We are also looking at a 1-ton truck and plow with sander and the backhoe loader. So we have 3 backhoe loaders in our fleet. One is at the Rhodes Garage, one is at West Guilford Landfill, one is at Halliburton Landfill. So we're recommending that we purchase one this year. The one at the Rhodes Garage, which is 7 years old, will go to one of the landfills, and the remaining 2 backhoes are 15 and 24 years old respectively. So it's just basically getting this one back in. We're trying to get 21 years out of each unit, which means buying one every 7 years. Next one, please, Barbara.
Do we have an idea how many hours are on that?
On the new ones,
On the, yeah, the one, yeah, the newest one we have.
they average about 900 hours a year. Yeah. So road rehabilitation, we tendered our work in 2023. There was an option there. If mutually agreed, we can extend with the contractor. I'm in discussions with them right now. We will know by the end of this month if we can make something work out. In the meantime, we've put a $2.3 million placeholder in there for road rehab. Once we get the pricing kind of solved, we can either move forward with our existing contractor, or alternately, we'll have to go into tender. More capital on facilities. So we're proposing $30,000 to convert one of our rooms into an additional washroom. Right now, we have 1 washroom at the Rhodes Garage for 16 full-time. Through COVID, we started renting the portable toilets and hand washing stations to keep people apart. That is kind of merged into an operating cost now. We're proposing getting rid of those and putting a second bathroom in to the Rhodes Garage. We have $20,000 from last year, from 2021, sorry. No, 2022, sorry. We're going to do a feasibility study on that facility. And we didn't go through with that study. So we have $20,000 in reserves, and we're proposing $10,000 from taxation for that. Next one, please, Barbara. So on gravel pits, we did a pre-approval to do some tree clearing at the Carroll Road pit. I'm hoping to get that tender kicked out here shortly. Timelines are getting pretty tight. The work needs to be done by April if we hope to use that pit this summer for screening sand. Alternately, we can extend the tree clearing contract and use one of our other pits for screening sand if needed. And that will be coming from the reserve as well. I walked the site with Councillor Boyce there, and he claimed that there was nothing there really worth saving. It's all pretty small stuff. So this table, this is just the funding formula for all my capital. You can see taxation's about $2 million, 1.5 million from reserves, and taking on that debt of about $2.8 million. Next one, please, Barbara. So some consulting fees, the Dover Hill Road closure. This is a very much an ongoing file. This has been going on since 2014. Some back and forth between ourselves and the ministry. It's kind of fallen off both our desks at one point. So we're hoping to close that intersection off of Highway 118. The first 200 or 300 feet, we don't maintain it anyways, and just access the road from Fred Jones, which they have been doing since 2014. So this is just to formalize it with the ministry. There will be some minor rehab required at the intersection once the paper side of it is done. So that'll be a later on cost. Next line down, the community safety zone. So this is required as the garden retirement development. Dysart did commit to doing that a few years back. It's just, again, it's time and things kind of lag on. So we're recommending engaging consultants in this to deal with the ministry and get that kind of looked after.
Sidewalk's good, by the way. Right down the search there now, down the sidewalk.
So far, we'll see how it lasts, right? That's why there's warranty. The next two is relating directly to Connecting Link. We spoke about this at a past council meeting for kind of getting this project shovel ready for some ministry funding. So I got some placeholders in there to do a survey and base plan, which would cover basically from the fire hall down to garden retirement, and also doing some CCTV inspection of the stormwater and wastewater system throughout that section too, just see what we're kind of into under the ground. And sidewalk inspection, we have a company come in there and they have a little cart with a camera and GPS on it, and they measure all the bumps on our sidewalks. So they do that once a year for us, and we GIS all that, and it's part of our inventory. Just a couple pictures for you here. The summer maintenance, we're looking at about 11% increase. Next one, please, Barbara. The winter maintenance, about a 17% increase. Next one, please, Barbara. And largely from the operating side, the increase is directly related to the rental rate increases that were approved this year. Notably, once we approved the rates last year, it wasn't long after that. I want to say about 5 or 6 months after that, the ministry raised them again. So instead of doing it every 5 years, they did it the following year, basically. Next one, please, Barbara. And here you see the impact of the equipment rental rate on the operating budget. We're predicting 2023 to come in around 1.1. I'm budgeting 1.25 for 2024. The reason 2023 seems to be a little bit skewed is council opted to go with the MTO rate last year when we approved these rates. And in my budget, I didn't quite account for that full rate. I kind of split the difference between what we had and what the ministry used. So there was that gap there, and then it got raised again this year, of course. And again, that was very, very top level. I'm sure there's going to be one or more questions on this. I'll do my best to answer now. If not, I may have to do a deeper dive and get back to you on some of this.
Rob, on the winter maintenance.
Yep.
You got an increase there, like a 17%. I guess you're just kind of assuming that it's going to be a tougher winter. Is that how do you come about that?
I plan for the worst, certainly. But our equipment rental rate factors in there because basically that's about 5 months of our year, right? So we got all our stock rolling largely for winter maintenance. So it's going to be the rental rate is the bigger cost.
So a lot of that is the rental rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rob, you've taken, or we have a bridge condition inventory.
Yes.
Do you not? So is there a way you think we could do, depending on there's any surprises or not, one bridge per year, on that note? Like if we can allocate, we both know that different bridges are going to require different capital amounts, but on the same note, 2 and 1 years of fairly steep climb, if we can do the one in Koshlong, like Murray said earlier on there, and we need that infrastructure, like the ramp and the pad to go to the next one, and we just keep doing that every year, I think that would be a good one. My opinion of your tractor backhoe, if that's one thing we can hold off till next year, if it's not massively critical. That's my opinion to stave that off for another year, but anyway.
And I just going back to Councillor Casey, you had asked about the bridge inventory earlier on. So we do have 21 bridges in our network. 3 of them are the footbridges in the park. You have 3 structural culverts and 15 actual clear span bridges. And most of them were built in the 50s and 60s. So the lion's share are nearing end of life. So depending how they were built, they certainly weren't built to sustain these loads that they're taking on right now. So if you want to do 1 year, I mean, that will get us through eventually for sure. It's just, we have had 2 bridge failures, 3 bridge failures since I've been here. And it's just one of those, you can't predict those.
What was
right?
that pace though, Rob? Like, was it one a year or I know you can't predict them, but if your engineers are going through and checking them every 2 or 3 years, then it should kind of set a pace for replacement. Number one. Number two, what is the life expectancy after we put a new bridge in? Is it 40 years?
They're saying 75 on the
That's
new
good.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because bridge code didn't come in until the late 70s, right? So everything that was built prior to that, they were engineered, but they weren't taking the loads they're taking now, so.
Also, the Kosh Long one that you're talking about, they're gonna convert it to culverts,
Hopefully.
and Mary might have asked this already, but you think that we'll get the go-ahead this in 2024?
The engineering can be done. It's right now, they've been going back and forth with DFO on that. They have 2 different, very, very different points on that. Hopefully we get the approval to put culverts in. It will be significant cost savings.
Right.
So
But your figures right now are based on
culverts,
culverts?
yes,
Okay.
keep those high hopes.
Well, I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. Going to the wages, snow plowing and removal. We spent 100,000, including December. We're budgeting 150. And on salting and sounding, we spent 82, we spent 100, not even 100, and we're going to 190. That's a huge difference. Can you account for that?
Well, generally on
Oh,
wages.
it's not the wages.
Well, generally on wages with us, it's a net amongst the whole maintenance operating budget. So if we're under on snow plowing, we're probably gonna be over on patching or
So
the
if I add
construction.
all the wages together, I should come up with some total.
Yeah, that's generally how we budget
Okay,
for
I'll do
wages,
that.
so.
The other thing that what roads are you actually doing this year, and what roads should we be doing? Because there's a long list of needs we have, and
Mhm.
we just don't have the money to do it. So I just like council to hear that and what those roads are.
Until we get pricing, it's really hard to say which ones should we be doing? There's a lot we should be doing.
Yeah, well, let's say the ones we should be thinking about. Can you list those for us?
Not off the top of my head, and I don't want to say something that may not be what people want to hear, quite
Oh,
honestly.
The beauty of,
Well, I mean, there's 2 ways of looking at it. We've gotten away from the worst first scenario over the last several years into a pavement preservation. And now, and those that have been here in years past, I preach this every year, it takes one spring for our roads to fall apart. Well, the spring of 2023 was that spring. I mean, we had roads that just went upside down. You guys probably get the calls on them too. The reality is we can't afford to replace them all in 1 year, probably not even in 2. So that's why we got to sit down with this contractor, figure out what the pricing is going to be. And before we bring something back, I mean, I can bring back my recommendation, but if there's something you want to do over and above, we either have to deviate from our plan, our asset management plan, or we need more funding. So.
well, I guess my thinking is, we're gonna have to borrow money for a bridge.
Mhm.
If there's roads that we know we're going to have to do and they're capital. And for instance, if they're say they're Curry Drive, let's just throw Curry Drive out for an example. And that's 400,000 or 600,000. And we know we gotta do that, and we know we got to do 4 others. What's the difference, and if we're borrowing for 40 years, to do it for $4 million rather than 2, and then go back next year and say, we still can't do these roads, guys, we can't do it in our term because we don't have enough money. And I'm just trying to think down the road here about what we could do, and especially now, if you get the price from Miller that you hope to get, we're not gonna get it any more reasonably if they can do the work. That's, but I'd like us to have that discussion at least as council.
Okay, like if you, I mean, if I'm reading between the lines here a little bit, if you want to form like a bit of a working group, I'm happy to sit down with.
Okay. Would.
Give us the list of the top of the road teams that got that.
But it's all contingent on pricing. That's the thing, yeah.
But you still got a
Yep.
list of, these are the top priorities.
Yep.
Pick what you need done.
Yep.
But we know some of the other roads have fallen apart too.
Mhm.
And and you're never gonna get away from it.
You're not, and you know, hopefully it doesn't happen, but you might have another spring in 2024 that we had in 2023, and then you just add another 12 kilometers onto the list. So,
Well, it's never ending.
I mean,
But-
they weren't exactly built on the best base, so we didn't have a lot
But you
going
are
for
doing
us.
proper ditching now, which is.
We're getting
glad
there.
to see.
Where you can, yeah.
Yeah. Somebody else, Barry,
Yeah.
Walt.
Yeah, this is just a question for Barb and maybe I should understand this, but I'd like her to just to explain this to me. So the budget represents an overall municipal levy increase of 14.85. So that would basically include all the expenditures and everything, costs that we've talked about here in the last 2.5 hours, correct?
Correct.
So in that 14.85, is there roughly $2.5 million for bridges?
So
Here, let me just finish. My question is, how, if that's the case, how would that affect the levy? If we spread that out over 40 years?
yeah, so the bridge projects, the two that are being proposed, total $2,550,000. So if the municipality borrows that money, the annual impact on the levy is the debt repayment. If you amortize that over a 40-year term, the $2,550,000, that equates to just under $74,000 in debt repayment every year. And that is the net impact on the levy. So if you're looking at $110,000 equates to a 1% levy increase, $74,000 on that
3/4 of it.
is roughly 0.7% on the levy.
So that 14.85, that was taking into consideration that the bridges would be amortized over 40 years.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking at, Barbara, the other sheet that we have here that's got some of the other things that we owe, like the garage roof, we're still paying off. We're still paying off streetscape. We're still paying off a number of little things, like some of them are fairly small. I'm not sure if we're going to borrow, if the rate goes down here, hopefully in February, that we shouldn't consolidate some of these. Like so that we'd have one payment and understand what it's for, because we're gonna have to do streetscape again. Our sidewalks are not in good shape, and certainly those paving stones are not. So that's gonna be another fairly major expense, plus the roads and everything else. So I think it's time we're at the end of a year. It's time we looked at the big picture and decide where we want to go for the next 3 years. That's just my take. And if we get a plan, hopefully it'll work out. Maybe not, but maybe so. Who knows? Anything else for Rob here, or you got away pretty easy, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm good to go, right?
Not yet, you're not done yet, so you'll be back.
No doubt.
One thing, Murray, just before we break off, so again, I don't want to seem like I'm, I guess I am foggy, but anyway, the three new plow trucks, would that not be a wash of just two if the insurance money covered off the one that was damaged?
Should be.
So we only really need, we need. So it should be balanced then, if that's the case.
So,
We still gotta pay for it this year in 2020.
yeah, so when we got we are insured for replacement value, so less your deductible. So in 2022, we got the replacement of that truck in 2022. Well, that's not what it's worth in 2024. That's the problem. So, I mean, most of the money is there, less the increase. But yeah, when we got the check went into the reserve, and now it's just gonna come back out 2 years later. but it's not gonna cover all of the truck. It's gonna cover most of the truck.
Because the truck price went up.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's full cost of a truck then.
Yeah.
If that's the case, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna assume that we're not gonna get $50,000, so that number should be really 50,000 or the difference of the two, no?
I'd say, right?
Something like that.
Well, it's still, yeah, it's still the full expense though,
Okay.
right? Yeah. Yeah, it's not a net, it's full.
Okay. Any other questions for Rob?
No, lots of questions for you, Rob, but I think I'll wait till the next one.
I'll
Get a
let-
little bit more information on it, yeah,
I'll let you go back and reload.
yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, anything else for Rob then? Then we're good. Thank you. Okay, what's next? Barb?
So that concludes all of the departmental presentations, and I'll turn it back over to you on how you would like to proceed.
Well, rather than me asking all the questions here, or a lot of them, I'm gonna go in and sit down with you and go over some things with you. If that's all right, Barbara?
Yep.
I can get the answers in and if can convey that to council. They're not big items, but there's a lot of little items that I need an explanation on. And I think council do too, but maybe I've been looking at these things so long that I'm kind of hard on staff sometimes, but you know what? It's good for staff. They need to understand that we're representing taxpayers and we need to have answers. And we need to be accountable. So we'll carry on if that's the case. Am I losing my power here?
And if I may just add, if any of council has questions as they're digesting all this information, there is quite a bit there to digest. Certainly feel free to reach out to me, and definitely would be happy to answer your questions.
So anybody does have questions? So when's our next meeting? It's December, is it January or?
January 12th.
January 12th, okay. So we got some time here to, I know you're going, over Christmas, you're gonna read this. Not likely. But anyway, it's a big hit. And I'm just trying to make sure that we think everything through and make the right decision now for the next year or two. Because this could happen again next year, 12%, and you can't keep putting it up 12%. If I were on, like if my assessment was 800,000, this would be a $500-600 tax increase for nothing. That I don't see if my roads aren't being done. Yeah, Nancy?
I think we also have to be cognizant that the county levy hasn't come down yet.
No, but it's not going to go down either.
No, but that's what I mean. I mean, and Dysert's paying 38 to 40% of the county levy.
Yeah.
So that's gonna add a bit of an increase.
Yeah.
And put
And
more
again,
pressure on us at our level.
We don't know what the education tax rate's doing.
No.
If it goes down, that helps us. But if it ever goes up, we didn't get hammered, so. Okay. So are we ready then to adjourn? See that? Okay. Okay, so we have a resolution then, Mallory?
Yeah, I'll read the resolution for the budget. So be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the first draft of the municipality of Desert et al. 2024 budget.
Mover and seconder, Tammy and Harry, all in favor? Harry. Okay, confirm.
And,
Mallory?
Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-107, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting of council held on December 8, 2023. Be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Okay, mover and seconder, Nancy and Pat, all in favor? Harry. And adjournment.
Okay, be it resolved the council adjourn its special meeting held on December 8, 2023 at 12:22 p.m.
All in favor? Walt and Carm, All in favor, I guess it is. Good. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, folks.